Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for our Discover webinar, Payday Made Easy. Today, you'll discover how CDM Plus Payroll simplifies direct deposit and reduces payroll headaches. We'll also be showcasing how your employees can access their pay stubs through Engage. Our discussion today is going to be led by Don Howell, a support technician at Saran, who has been with us just shy of 5 years. And although Don has been a support tech for 5 years, he is also a pastor and has used CDM Plus in his churches for over 20 years. We're excited to learn from Don today. Other members of our team with us include Alex Clay, our CEO, Sherry Sneddon, our support manager, Jennifer Nelson, our support engineer, Chris Widener, our marketing specialist, and myself, Julianne Manning, our product specialist. Before we get started here today, we do want to take a moment to talk about some exciting trainings coming up. First, we will not have a Discover webinar in April because we are doing a 2-day virtual training called Successful Contributions with CDM Plus. This format will be similar to our successful bookkeeping training we did last year, where we will spend 2 afternoons taking a deep dive into our contributions program to see features and workflows that you will use every single day. This training will be held April 21st through the 22nd from 1 to 5 Eastern Daylight Savings Time. The training is $49, and this will include a curated website which will have all the session recordings on it, as well as curated resources specific for this training. And this is a great training. You'll be able to refer to this time and time again, use it for multiple staff members. So definitely make sure to check it out. We're also excited to share that our registration is open for our annual users conference. And our annual users conference this year is going to take place September 22nd through 24th in Charleston, West Virginia. And the annual users conference is a great time, and it's built really to help you move from surviving the week to steering the year. And it's a great time of connection where you can get a chance to meet and hear from other users about how they use CDM Plus, but you're also able to talk face to face with our support staff and team. And I'm also excited to announce that this year we're going to be offering a core track. This track was designed with new staff members in mind to help get them up to speed in a hurry. And the core track kind of cuts straight through to what matters most with a focus on the core CDM Plus programs you use daily and their practical use. So lots of good things going on at the annual users conference. You will not want to miss it. Our team just got back from West Virginia from our staff retreat, and it's a great location and great hotel, and we definitely hope to see you there. And in May, we will be back to our Discover webinars, and the next one's going to be our event sign-up solution. And this webinar will focus on our event registration program and will highlight how to make sign-up for events simple for your attendees. So we hope to see you there in May. So without further ado, Don, we're going to send it over to you.
Thanks, Julianne. Payroll direct deposit is one of my favorite parts of the program, and it truly is what I consider to be one of the easiest things we do on a month-to-month basis at our church. And so if you're interested in signing up for payroll direct deposit or getting more information about that, just go up to Help in CDM Plus and click Contact CDM Plus support, and any of our support techs will be glad to pass that information along to you. Specifically today, we're going to be talking about several things as it pertains to payroll direct deposit. And as with any payroll setup, there's keys to having an easy process for payroll, and those things include setting up your deduction setup records correctly, as well as your employee records. And so we're going to chat a little bit about that today, and because that is the most difficult part of the process. But once you get it set up, CDM Payroll just runs so smoothly. It's a very easy process to do. We'll also be talking about calculating salaried and hourly payroll, as well as payroll records management, where you may need to make adjustments or corrections, and the process of actually doing payroll direct deposit. And then lastly, we're going to look at online employee information using Engage Payroll. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. The first thing that you'll want to do, when you're setting up your records or setting up employees, is you'll want to go to your deduction setup records, and we'll go to Program, Payroll, and Deduction Setup Records. And we're going to look at several types of records here that you will be setting up in this window. One of the first things that you may want to set up is your local or your county taxes. I've got an example here of a Lexington city tax that is set up, and you can see, you just name it Lexington tax. You can select the type of tax that it's going to be or withholding, and it'll be a local tax, and the particular tax form that would be used for that particular tax. If you want, you can put the account number in there, and you can also mark the type of income tax that it is, whether it be county income tax, school district income, or other income tax. You'll also set the calculation here. In this particular case, the Lexington local tax is 1.5% of your gross, and if there's any specific pay ranges that applies to that as well. All right. The next thing that you'll want to set up is, if there are any types of pension withholdings or matching employer deductions with those pension withholdings. If you are going to have a matching deduction, the church is going to match pension deduction for an employee, you'll want to go ahead and set that particular deduction up first. And here, I'll just kind of go over setting one of these up. You just go ahead and you'll click Add, but I'm going to click Change. So we'll just put that this is the pension match, and then you'll select what type of deduction it is, which in this case it's an employer matching deduction. The W-2 field is something that you'll either get from your pension board or benefits board, whoever handles that for you, or your local tax accountant. It's not necessarily something that we in support can help you with, but this is something that you can get that information when you're setting it up. And in this case, it's a designated Roth match, but you can get that information from either your tax accountant or your benefits board. In this case, the frequency that this is going to come out is going to be every single pay period, and you'll set the vendor here to whichever vendor it's going to be. It's based on pay, and in this case, the withholdings for this is going to go into the 2500 liability account, or accounts payable account, which is a liability account. It's going to be expensed to the pension expense account. Once you've got all this set up, then you'll set up the calculation. In this case, we are saying that we will withhold 100% of whatever the employee chooses to withhold, up to 3% of that employee's pay. So the employee may choose to withhold 5% from their pay, but in this particular case, and different churches have different contracts with their employees, or different things written into their minutes where they will pay up to a certain amount. So in this case, we're saying that we will match their withholding up to 3% of their pay. They may also choose to only withhold 2%. In that case, this is just saying we will match the 2%, but we won't go over that unless it goes up to 3%. All right. Another thing that you're going to be doing once you set that up, then you'll actually set up the pension deduction for the employee. And in this case, we'll set up a pension deduction. It's considered an other type of deduction. And again, you're going to choose what type of W-2 field that this information is going to go into. And in this case, it's a 403B. And you can see there's a number of options here: 401k, 408k. You would need to get guidance from a tax accountant or from your benefits board or pension board, whoever handles that. as to what W-2 field and whether it is a pre-tax deduction or an after-tax deductions, because those will vary on the type of deduction it is. In this case, we want to make this an every pay period deduction, and we'll set the vendor to the denominational pension fund, and all the withholding for this is going to also go into that 2,500 liability account. Now you'll notice down here at the bottom that there is a matching deduction. So sometimes the organization does not match it, but in the event that the organization does match it, you'll want to make sure you choose the matching deduction that we set up, which is called employer's pension match. You don't necessarily, you can put a calculation in here. Sometimes that is more specific to each particular employee, because if you have 5 employees, all 5 may give a different amount. But you don't have to set a calculation here, but you can if your deduction setup record is specific to a given employee, and you can say it's 5% or whatever percent what they want to have it set at. A couple of other things that you can set up. You can set up TSA or HSA deductions, for health savings plans, those kind of things. And again, you're going to get guidance from a tax accountant to how to set those deductions up. In support, we can set it up however you're instructed that it needs to be, but we cannot tell you how that it needs to be set up. Okay? You can also see that insurance, different types of insurances can also be set up for deductions, whether it be medical, dental, vision, whatever, or life insurance. Each of these can be separate, and they would again have their own codes as well. All right, so once you've got your deduction setup records all done, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to go to your employee setup records. So we're going to go to payroll, and let me not click too quick, and go to employee records. All right, and so we're just going to use Dean Patterson because his payroll is the one we're going to do today. And we're going to start with the basic information. You will start with this setup window when you're doing this. So if there's a state tax, you'll set the state tax. If there's a local tax, that local tax percentage that you set up in the deduction setup record, you would choose that here. You can also the W-4 that you have on file for that employee, you would also use that to set up this window for the W-4 and the state withholding. If they are on direct deposit, you'll also want to make sure you check this auto draw button and whether you want to print the check stub, when you're processing the direct deposit payroll. So you'll just make sure you check this auto draw button. It's very important if you are doing direct deposit. This is what tells the program that their payroll is going to be processed by something other than a check. The next thing you will do is the employee setup aspect of it, which is the name and the social security number, their employee ID, and all of that, the payer information, all of that will be set up here, their address. I'm going to come back to this because there's a couple parts of this that I want to point out once we get to the online part of it, because this is the window where you're going to connect them to the online payroll. The third thing that's essential when it comes to direct deposit payroll in the employee record is setting up their pay items, what type of pay items they have. And in this case, because this is a senior pastor, under the taxes and deductions tab, you're going to want to make sure that the FICA and the Medicare check boxes are checked. Because lead pastors, ordained ministers, are exempt from FICA and Medicare as it pertains to the setup for their record, as they're looked at as dual status with the IRS, and their taxes can be taken out other ways. You can actually add on to the federal to compensate for the FICA and the Medicare. which the total of it is 15.3%. If the church matches some of that, you can add on whatever you want to the federal and actually make up the difference, so that they don't get hit with the FICA and Medicare at the end of the year. Here's the Social Security offset. This is the church's portion of that. So the church would set up a rate for that, whatever that 7.65% is, and then that amount is taken right back out of their wages, so that they really never see that. They're just getting compensated for it by the church to cover the church's part of their taxes. Of course, housing, when you set up housing, you're going to make sure that you choose this box 14 other and type in the word housing here. I wouldn't put a whole lot of extra wording in there. Housing is typically fine, and it will actually fit in the W-2 box. Some people will put too much stuff in there, and it'll actually cause it to not all read in the W-2 when you print the W-2 at the beginning of the year. And in this case, the housing part of it, all of these items are exempt. This doesn't mean that it's exempt, it's going to be completely excluded from the W-2. What this means is it's excluded from box 1 wages of the W-2 because it's an allowance, but it is, housing is exempt from federal and state taxes, but that's how you would set up the housing part of that. All right, so then we get to our deductions, and here we have a pension deduction. If we want to add other deductions, we can choose those deductions. If we want to add insurance, and there's an insurance payment, we can add that here, and whatever that dollar amount is. If it's, it would be great if it was $25 every pay, but that's typically not the case. It's usually a lot more these days. But you would just choose again, where that's going to go to. I don't know that we have one. We'll just do it to the same one. And you'll just put the amount in here. So here's where you would put the pension deduction amount. In this case, this employee wants to take out $150 every pay towards their pension. Okay. Another thing that's very important, and the things that I'm going to cover and focus on in this setup are things that are vital to the direct deposit setup. If you don't set up these items correctly, so if your pay items, if you forget account numbers in here, when you try to run your direct deposit, a payroll direct deposit, you can actually get errors when you're trying to run it. So you need to make sure you have the correct account numbers. All of these would be expense account numbers. And in the liabilities, you would need to make sure you have all of these liability account numbers. If you don't have these account numbers set up, it will cause you problems with direct deposit payroll. I'm not going to cover a lot about time off, but you can set up time off here. You can also use this comments tab. In this case, I use the comments tab to just note anytime that the pastor's salary was increased or there was a change to the wages. It's just a good tab to be able to use to document things that happen with that particular employee's account. This accounts tab, I would actually prefer to have it over here, so that because all these tabs here are the most important tabs when it comes to direct deposit payroll. You definitely have to have an account number, and CDM is really awesome in that you can actually split the direct deposit into 2 different accounts if you would choose to do so. In this case, Dean wants $200 of his pay to go into his savings account, and the rest of it to go into his checking account. So we set an amount here, and in some cases, employees may want to do a percentage. So they may want to do 5% or 10% into savings and 90% into their checking account. But you can actually, the great thing about CDM direct deposit is you can actually set how much you want to go, or you can split it into separate accounts. Next, we have the connections tab. The connections tab just connects them to other people within the organization. And user fields, this is a great tool to use to store like your your W-4 forms. You know, you can take a digital copy and upload a digital copy of a W-4. You can put background checks in this window. You can put I-9 forms. You can attach digital copies of all these forms and keep it right on the employee record. So once you've got everything set up, and this is the biggest part, is getting everything set up because that is the key to successful payroll. So once everything is set up, now we can actually process payroll. And so we're going to just go through that process today and just show you just how simple it is once everything is set up right. So we're going to go to Program, Payroll, and we're going to go to Calculate Regular Payroll. Now in this case, we're going to set the payroll date, or payroll period date, start at Sunday, and it's going to go through Saturday. And this particular employee is going to get paid on Monday. And today we're just going to pay Dean. And then we have an hourly employee that we're also going to pay. So when you're setting up your payroll, calculate payroll window, always make sure you've got open payroll records set. And if you do have hourly employees, you can check that hourly payroll and it will process the hourly immediately following this setting up the payroll for your salaried employees. So in this case, Dean is the only salaried employee that we're paying today. So we'll calculate that. All right, so we calculated the payroll for Dean. And because I said process hourly, now it brings up the hourly window. So we'll go ahead and we'll process one for Marie. We'll say Marie put in 40 hours this week, and we'll calculate her payroll as well. All right. So once it calculates this payroll, it automatically opens the payroll records window. And I recommend, is particularly if you're using direct deposit payroll, that you always open this window and just check your payrolls to make sure everything looks right. Okay. When you process direct deposit payroll and it is transmitted, it's very difficult to reverse that once it's transmitted. So you want to make sure everything is correct before you process that payroll. And so in this case, we're just going to check Dean's payroll and we're just going to make sure everything looks okay. It's showing his net pay, it's showing his wages. So if we click on the other deductions, it shows his pension and the employer match. It shows the detail of what he's getting paid. And then it shows, of course, his taxes that's being withheld and everything. So when I check this, I make sure this net pay, and that's generally speaking, when I process payroll, that's a lot of what I'm looking at. I'm looking at this net pay to make sure that, you know, this does look right. You can also make corrections at this point. So say, for instance, you know, someone put an offering in and they gave him, you know, an extra $200, and they just put it in the plate. You can always make that change here by clicking change and going into the detail, and you can give him extra money towards his salary, you know, if he had extra money that was given to him. Or if you're trying to make up for, you know, a pay raise later in the month, you know, maybe he got a pay raise at the beginning of the month and we need to catch him up. You can always just adjust it here and then go back and fix the employee record if you need to after that. You'll notice that for Dean's payroll, it's set to auto draw, which means it'll show up in the direct deposit window. In this case, Marie here, she is not set to auto draw. So she would be getting a check and Dean would be getting direct deposit. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and process a direct deposit payroll. So we're going to go to Program, Payroll, and Direct Deposit Processing. All right. So you can see I've got two payrolls open here. And we're going to look specifically at the April 6th one. So we're going to make that deposit. So we're going to put a deposit date here, and you can see that you get a list of dates that you can't run a payroll because of holidays. So it'll say deposit on April 6, 2026, and it'll come out of your bank the previous Friday, which would be April 3rd. You click OK, and now it's going to give you a list here of a draft of direct deposits, and you're going to choose the payrolls that you want to pay on this particular payroll. We have an open payroll for March 30th. We're going to ignore that one. I just had an extra one in there. But I want to put April 6th, and we're going to hit selected. Now, most of the time, you're just going to select all, and it would process all of your open payrolls. But in this case, we just want to do the April 6th one, so we're going to click selected. Okay. And you can see we've still got the March 30th payroll out there. This would not be normal, by the way. This is just because I have extra payrolls in the system, and I thought I had deleted that. So we're just looking at this March or April 6th one. Again, you're still going to check, does this look like the right amount? If it doesn't, you still have a chance here to remove this. So I can select his payroll here and I can remove it. So if I click selected, I can go back and I can fix the payroll before I actually process it. So we're going to go ahead and act like we're processing it. Everything's good. And then we're just going to go ahead and click transmit deposit down here at the bottom. Okay. And so you're going to get this little statement here. You're transmitting a direct deposit in the amount of $1995.32. It's going to be withdrawn on the 3rd, and it's going to go into their bank on April 6th. Do you want to continue? Click OK. Okay. So once you have transmitted the deposit, you'll click on the transmitted button in the direct deposit processing window, and you'll be able to see previous direct deposits that have gone in and the direct deposit that you just processed. If you click on that, you'll be able to print your check stubs, or you can print selected, or you can print all of them. So if you want to print a selected check stub, you could select the employee that you're wanting to print the stub for, and then just click print selected. Again, you can also print all. So the last thing I want to talk about is the online employee information through Engage Payroll. Now there's some setup that you'll want to do to connect people to their payroll for through Engage. And so I'm going to go ahead and go up here. We're going to start with making sure they've got an Engage account. So we're going to go to Program, Membership, and Individual Records. All right. And in this case, we're going to make sure we find Dean Patterson's name. So here's Dean's name. And we want to make sure that he has online credentials. He will not be able to view his payroll online through Engage unless he has credentials already set up. If he doesn't have them set up, in this case, like David Hatmaker, for instance, this might actually be everybody. No, I think it's because of the way that my filter has worked. Let me unfilter that. So these people don't have a username. So you would create an account. You can create an account for them here, and it's just you're gonna give them a username. You're gonna put the email address that it goes to, and then they'll have an opportunity to set their password as you've created an Engage account for them. So we go back down here to Dean. As you can see, Dean has a username. We can change his role if we want to, and we can also see when the last time is that he logged in. We can clear those credentials or transfer them to another record if we want to. So we're going to go to his employee record now. So once make sure he's got an Engage account, we're going to go over to the employee record, and on this employee information tab, we're going to make sure that we check this link to address record button and select when we're going to make sure that his address is selected when we do that. Okay, The next thing we want to do is we want to, out of that address record, there's a number of individuals who live there, but only Dean is actually an employee. So we're going to choose Dean as the employee. So once you've linked it to the address record and you've selected the employee's name, then you'll be able to actually view his payroll online. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. So here's Dean. Dean's going to log in. All right, and Dean's going to have access to a number of different things in his Engage account. He can look at his giving, but because we've linked him to payroll, he's going to get this payroll tab on his Engage account. So we'll click on the payroll tab here and select payroll. All right, and you can see this is going to list all of the payrolls that Dean has had. The payrolls we've processed, and you can select any one of these payrolls and you can get very much the details of this particular payroll. So in this case, you're going to have a check number. If that's applicable, I did process just a regular check for him. But if it was a direct deposit, it would be a direct deposit number. It would show his gross, his net pay. It would show his pay items and the breakdown of that, whether it be housing, salary, Social Security offset. And then you could also look at the withholdings, and you could see the different types of withholdings that he's got, the different types of deductions that he's got as well. So when we look at his pay items and we scroll down here, on this particular payroll, we have an opportunity to print a pay stub. Now, I will say this is the format that it's in, but you can see that it's not going to be in the exact form of a typical pay stub. You would actually need to print a pay stub, like if he needs to submit something to the bank. But this is a way that employee would be able to print out their pay information if they wanted it. If they wanted a specific pay date, they could show that particular payroll. So if we go back, you've got this whole list of payrolls, and again, this one has a check number, but the direct deposits will say DD, and then it'll have this number here because it's a direct deposit. Next thing you can look at is their year-to-date payroll. You can select what year you want to look at. In this case, we're going to look at the 2026 payrolls, and it's just going to give his totals for the year. Or you can choose a previous year, whatever you want to look at, and you would have all that information depending on what year it is. He didn't get paid in 2025, but he did get paid some money in 2024. So you can just get a view of the total year to date on this window. So that is all that I have today. If there's anybody that has any questions.
Looks like one just came in the chat for pastors. They would like to kind of go over the FICA and Medicare exempt. Can you explain that again?
Sure. With a pastor's payroll, and I am a pastor, so I'm very familiar with this. In the setup for a pastor, pastors are looked at and viewed by the IRS as dual status. And what that means is they are considered to be both an employee of the organization as well as a self-employed person. So because we've got Dean here set up as the senior minister, when you look at his payroll and his deductions and taxes, because he's a pastor, he should be exempt from FICA and Medicare. In other words, he is responsible for pay because he has to pay it as self-employment tax. Now, one of the ways that personally, and I always recommend this, and I do this for my own taxes as well, is what I do is I calculate. So in this case, because the church is paying an offset here, the Social Security offset, then I'll have to pay my own 7.65% in Social Security and Medicare. So I can actually add that on to my federal amount. So if I want to say, I want $100 for FICA and Medicare to go, I would add that as an add-on amount here. And the IRS does not care that I overpaid my federal taxes. The IRS only cares about what my total tax bill is. So I can overpay my federal taxes to compensate for the fact that the church is not taking out FICA and Medicare for me. And the housing, again, it's exempt from everything. So you're going to exclude it from the box one wages, and you're also going to exempt it from taxes. Now, how I've handled that in the past is I've added that amount on as well as an add-on amount here to cover the FICA, because the FICA and Medicare is the only thing that a pastor has to pay for housing, and I always add that on, here as an additional, add on to my federal taxes.
Julianne, I think that might be about it.
Perfect. Well, a couple of things I just want to point out. Someone in the chat had asked, like, if you have to have Engage in order to do payroll direct deposit, and you don't, but Engage is included in all of our SaaS platforms, and it's just an easy way for not only employees to see their pay stubs, but also members of your church to see their directory, their groups, see their online giving. So it's definitely something worth looking into if you don't already use Engage. But if you're interested, if you're not currently using payroll direct deposit, which is about 75% of you here with us today, and you see something here today that you were like, oh, that's super easy, how do we get started? I definitely would encourage you to reach out to our support team at support@cdmplus.com. They will walk you through the steps or get you connected with our customer service team. You would have to fill out a merchant application that just allows us to be able to do payment processing for you, but they could also answer any of those questions as well. So definitely create a ticket by reaching out at support@cdmplus.com. As Don said earlier, you can also, if you're in CDM Plus, click on that little help menu and send that support ticket as well. So that's another option. Well, thank you so much for joining us here today. Again, definitely take a look at some of those trainings coming up, that successful contributions with CDM Plus, as well as our annual users conference. But we also hope to see you at our next Discover webinar in May. And as always, reach out to our team if anything else comes up or if you have any questions. Thank you for your time today. You have a great rest of your day.